Kia ora tātou kātou tō. Welcome to Blood, Sweat and Talanoa. Tonight we have a special guest of ours. He's pretty much well known in the sports of rugby league and tag and touch. Welcome to our show. I'll just introduce my two pals here, Shane and Te Hau. Kia ora, boys.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, so tēnā koe, Derek Renata. How are you?
Tēnā koutou, ki te mihi ki o koutou, ki te mihi mo te kaupapa o tēnei pō, e Pakiri Ruki, podcast, Blood, Sweat and Talanoa. Kei te mihi no reira, kei te mihi ki o koutou, I tēnei pō, ko Derek Renata hau, uri a hau ko ki Ngāti Raukawa ko au ki te tonga, me Ngāti Mano, ki te tau tōku māma, Ngāti Whanaunga, Ngāti Tamatera, haura ki whenua tikapa moana. I live in Purirua, love Cannons Creek. I'm not born and bred here, but yeah, we'll get to that. Hey, thank you so much. It's such an honour and a privilege to be here. Te Ari, Shane, Te Hau, thank you so much to have this kōrero, to have this conversation.
Yeah, mei toki. Hey, before we get on, again, appreciate for coming on and also appreciate our viewers. So, Te Hau, you want to start us off, please?
Yeah, bro, just on those questions on the involvement of the rugby league and the tag football, bro, if you just can kōrero of us, of your, a bit of your journey.
Yeah, I grew up in Tokoroa. Grew up there, went to school there, and rugby was the sport to play as a kid at school. Managed to kind of rub shoulders with some good players that had come out of Toke. We weren't allowed to play rugby league because it was on a Sunday, and Dad was a pastor of the Apostolic Church, so that kind of ruled us out of that game. But we moved to Purirua around about the mid 80s, and I ended up over in Lower Hutt. Played a number of years over there at Randwick. Heaps of Rarotonga, Cook Island whānau over there. Played under 17s, under 19s with a couple of the Wainui boys, Dave and Tony Lomax. Kind of hated coming over to play Purirua. Purirua under 19s with yourself, Te Hau, Danny Mueli. We hated playing you guys because we'd always lose, but yeah, kind of coming out of that space, it was more about trying to kind of find your way in life. And I went to design school in Wellington and spent a number of years at design school, doing graphic design, computer animation, and studied that for a number of years. And still involved in touch and tag, and went to Oranga Tamariki up in Otaki, spent some years up there before kind of finding my feet in government. I've been in government for a number of years. I've pretty much done all the ministries of health, treasury, justice, Oranga Tamariki of late, foreign affairs. So I've kind of done the rounds, and just currently at New Zealand Rugby. So yeah, just a brief overview of kind of where I've come from and what I've done. And but yeah, that's I'm still pretty much heavily involved. I saw Tom Snow on the pod a couple of weeks ago, and Tom and I play in the same tag team. It's such really great to see those role models come through in the health and wellbeing space, especially Tom. Tom's one of those hard grafters, those hard workers, and you put it in front of him, you see a challenge, and that guy will shine no matter what sport he plays. He played tiddlywinks, and he'd be a success at it. But But yeah, so good to kind of be on this podcast and see all the familiar faces that we have.
I don't know, because the way I get it, it's not. But with old young Tom Snow, it's like Charlie was like a bully instead of a big older cousin.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Charlie?
What do you mean? We're talking about bullying. Oh, when we had our episode with Tom.
Yeah.
No, I was just trying to say, Brad, you remember?
Now, Derek, you talk about the rugby league and the days there, but you've done a lot in terms of a few years sort of around the tag fields, around the region and stuff like that. What's been some of the key in terms of those post-footy days behind you now and sort of maintaining your sort of overall well-being, fitness in that?
Yeah, I mean, as you age, kind of injuries happen, and I think it's about finding that balance. There is work, there are there's whānau, there's family that you have to have some responsibility to, but also you've got to look after yourself. You've got to balance that out with, kind of eating well as staying active, and tag has provided me, with that opportunity to be active and still, play at a reasonable level, being at Masters, but kind of, what's interesting, the tag scene in Porirua is how big it's growing. On a Saturday up at Ascot Park, coming from, playing out in Titahi Bay and up here at the college to what it is now in Ascot Park. I'm in, I belong to the Valiants Club and Hayden Head and Adam Vardy. They've done a massive job with that club and the amount of kids teams that they have, and supplying boots and uniforms and the machinery that operates to support those teams. It's really, really awesome to see that. And there's a whole heap of that talent in Porirua. Porirua has got talent to burn in our sport, on the ground. And, it's evident everywhere and you go in Porirua, on the basketball courts, down at any field. Porirua has got talent to burn. And I just love it. I love Cannons Creek, and, I love being in the community.
Oh, cool. And look, also, in terms of the transition over decades around from touch to a lot more participation in flag, what's been sort of that observation in terms of you seeing that sort of shift with, people gravitating more towards tag these days?
Yeah, I think it's you can be any size playing tag. Whereas touch, was the kind of little hot steppers, and once you lose that speed, you kind of gravitate to playing tag. Where if you miss a tag, doesn't matter what size you are, you're going to miss a tag, and so that anyone could play in the sport, and that's what I love. It was more suited to a game of rugby league, and so more suited to our style of play as Polynesian, as Māori, where it was ball skill, and it originated from rugby league itself. So you're going to have that kind of player playing it. I mean, we had a touch reunion over the weekend. So good to see some of the old faces, Jason Moyo, Peter Salu, Nor Peter Stewart, James Marsh. They were all over the weekend, and touch back in the day, that was it. Was just a real fantastic game, and it is now. Touch in itself is a really, really fantastic game. But a lot of our Polynesian brothers and sisters tend to, especially in Porirua, tend to gravitate towards tag these days.
Yeah.
Derek, was that the Redskins, or was it just a touch itself?
Yeah, it was the Redskins. So I could only make it on the Friday, but didn't make it to the game on the Saturday. But good to connect to some of the boys. I mean, Nor Peter Stewart, he's a kayako up in Palmy at Kura there. He grew up with Carlos Spencer. Him and Carlos Spencer kind of grew up together. They came through the age grades, and Carlos went and done what he did. But Norpeta ended up in the men's touch team. He played national or international touch. So, and he came down here and played touch for the Redskins. He was, such a talented player, talented at rugby, talented at touch. But, really good to connect back with the old faces.
I'd seen the odd posting up from the weekend of the PC tag, eh? Was it?
It was PC tag.
Yeah. And then I seen a lot of the older teams, like you had the Cowboys, all those fellas.
Cowboys were there.
I think Derek Ray Liotta flew out today.
Oh yeah, Ray.
Yes, Ray was there. Yeah. Ray Liotta was there. Cowboys.
Was it Vi?
But you're right though. I didn't play any touch, bro. I waited till the flag started.
He didn't have your
one game of touch.
Yeah.
He didn't have your step, Derek.
It was like players like Mark Fatiolofa, Philo Tuunga.
Yeah.
When we in the young days, that's when at the PC at Poriro College those days.
Yeah. Well, Tana Unaga was in that team as well too, Teo. Because you played when Tana was playing as well.
Oh yeah. That was it was like a 17s going on to 19s.
That's right.
Kind of like that. Age group, teenagers days, eh?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, that's an old school. When I saw that all come up, and I think the guys like I think Cliff Wynyard, is it Cliff Wynyard?
Cliff Hedewini, Viola was in there. Dylan Nicholson. Yeah, massive. Yeah. Nah, it was massive. Cowboys were there. Bears were there. Some of your old brothers from the hood, but really good opportunity to connect. Obviously, Hinsey, Davies, the Davies brothers, Bears. They began it back when ROA was that team. They started touch here and Puriroa, and they grew it, and they still keep it running.
Yeah, and look, it's great that these teams are still sort of coming together at various times and connecting and staying in touch as well. And definitely saw a couple of those sort of cool posts about guys had a really good evening, or a couple of evenings, what it looks like as well. Yeah. Now, Derek, look, you talked, you sort of glossed over the work that you did in government and that as well. I was keen to get you to talk a little bit more around that design work as well, particularly around looking at capability building, and particularly with a cultural lens in that as well. So you've done a bit of work. We've talked offline around Oranga Tamariki and likes, and we'll talk about that before we jump into your current work with New Zealand Rugby.
Yeah, I spent 5 years at Oranga Tamariki, and actually I've just had a catch up with a couple of mates that are still in there, and it's not easy. I mean, social work and teaching has to be one of the hardest professions to ever do. I do not wish it upon anyone to do that work. I mean, the challenge that our tamariki, our rangatahi, our mokopuna face in today's world, our whānau, and kind of having a ministry to try and care for them, that it's really hard. I was kind of landed in the training and education space in terms of social work practice. Okay, so what is social work practice? It's about the relationship that they have and build with tamariki, rangatahi, and whānau. That's pretty much that in a nutshell. And these are whānau, these are tamariki that have been from a generation of poor health, poor education, a system that hasn't catered for them, and so therefore they're gonna do what they're gonna do. They haven't been looked after, and so at that end of the scale, Oranga Tamariki kick in. And so for them, the challenge is how do we get them back to whānau? And so one of my roles was about building Māori cultural capability. What does that mean for our staff? Well, understanding what aroha means, understanding what tika and pono and the values that Oranga Tamariki have to live up to, understanding what whanaungatanga is, understanding what talanoa means, understanding the things that of our culture, of Polynesian culture, of Māori culture that we hold true to. The importance of whānau, the importance of ainga, the importance of whenua, the sacredness of tapu, and our religions and our song and our dance. It's that whole cultural spectrum that we're having to relearn, not only for our own staff at Oranga Tamariki, but for our whānau in an education system that hasn't looked like us, right? Hey, we've been brought up in an education system that doesn't teach our own history, didn't like to teach our own language, definitely not. So song, dance, art, all of our culture was stripped away, and from years and years, generations of colonization, which continues to this day, is still the system that exists that we live in. And so the challenge was, how do we build some confidence, some capability in our staff to properly understand that, properly understand how do we know what aroha is and aroha looks like? How do we reconnect and not see the tamariki by themselves, but see that tamariki has whānau, has uncles, has aunties, has whakapapa. So trying to weave that in to the understanding of we only see the tamariki, therefore we remove the tamariki. That was the legislation that exists in the system. And it was about saying, no, you cannot just do that. You have to look at and consider the whole whānau in every decision that you make for that tamariki.
Yeah.
And so Oranga Tamariki has gone through a whole upheaval of cultural capability, of looking at its policies. But there's a Section 7AA legislation, and that legislation requires the return of tamariki back to their whānau. So that legislation is now looking to be cut under current government. So because it requires Oranga Tamariki to partner, to look after tamariki when they're in care, but to also think about how do we return this tamariki back to their whānau.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what the section is saying to this organisation. So when this current government has come in, they want to take it out.
Yeah.
And they will. They'll take it out in a heartbeat. And so that is the challenge of, so what do we do now? And sorry.
No, sorry, Derek. Look, with that work that you did, what was the most challenging of it? Because I just come back full circle around removing that. What will that sort of the gains that you made? What will that sort of result in terms of being the impact?
Yeah, good question, Jade. I mean, there's no silver bullet to this. Even if you learn this, you're not going to think that the outcome is going to be great for our tamariki and rangatahi. What we were trying to achieve was reflect on our own behaviour and the system that allows us to behave like that. So first of all, we got to know where our bias is. We got to know where our racist policy and legislation sits and why it exists. So it was a reflection on not only who we are now, but the generation of colonization need to be front and center, because we didn't know. No, they don't want to talk about the thing that hurts them. Colonization is a hurt. And so in their system, they don't want to talk about that. That's admitting to their own guilt of failure from years and years of oppression for our, not only for our Māori, for our Polynesian. So, you know, I remember when they had more dawn raids, man, the cops were knocking on our door because we look like you and you look like us, you know? And so we were caught up in the system that thought that, oh, you're Pacifica, you know, you're an overstay. And it's like, what? You know, hey, and so that was the system that governed us then. It's no different to what governs us today.
I think maybe it caused a lot of, I don't know, in my opinion, hearing that, caused a lot of, you know, injustice. You know, that you guys were Polynesian, you know, and vice versa. So it caused, you know, the cultures to clash.
Yeah,
like, stuff you guys, man. What are you? You know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the biggest gap is you get disconnected from your culture.
Yeah,
you get disconnected from your language, your reo, your you know, the culture of who you are, the kai that you eat, everything that makes you who you are. You get further and further away from that, and I think, you know, Shane, you know, coming back to your question, there was no easy thing to say that, okay, by building your own cultural capability, you might have an awareness in terms of the work that we do, not only on the front line, but the policy that you write. So the whole organization, from the front line to the back office, they had to go and do this cultural capability 3-month kind of wānanga. You know, there was some online meetings. There was 2 noho wānanga, as well as some assignments to complete. The whole organisation had to do it.
Yeah.
Because it can't just be the frontline people that do the work, right? Because the people in the office are writing the policy and the legislation that tells them what to do. So if only these fellas have an awareness, the other fellas don't, then you got the back line looking down this way and the forward pack going the other way. So, that thing's
the unity.
What did you see in terms of the implementation of that, and also just fantastic to have yourself in the design space with that as well? Did you see the desired shifts over sort of the period that, you know, you were looking to sort of get that sort of cultural change?
Yeah, you know, the good thing about our program that we designed was that we partnered with Te Wānanga Raukawa, Te Wānanga Aotearoa, and Awanuiarangi up in Whakatane. Yeah. And so they're the experts. Oranga Tamariki aren't the experts. So we had to step out of the space for them to design the wānanga, the mātauranga that sits in there, the knowledge, because as educationalists, they know what they're doing. So we just kind of left that up to them, and allowed them to kind of design into the space. All we did was provide technical support, as well as the support, the operational ground support for our own people, to say, hey, look, you got to go along and do this thing, because if you're not, then we're going to tell on you. We're going to tell on you for skipping class. And so there was a requirement for all of our staff to do it. Otherwise, we're wasting taxpayers' time and money, and we didn't want that to happen. So there had to be some kind of partnership in that design space. It couldn't just be delivered from an Oranga Tamariki lens.
Yeah.
Otherwise, would never get it right and would never address it properly.
It sounds like a huge bit of work in an area that's so important because of the impact it has on of our kids that end up in that particular system and that as well. So you've now moved on to another gig in terms of New Zealand Rugby. You know, talk to us about that, and you know, that's got its challenges as well.
Yeah, I'm now working in the community space in New Zealand Rugby. There's a community space, and there's a high performance where all the All Blacks and Sevens teams sit. They got all the money, and we got all the people. So and some money, but you know, it's challenging, but I love it. New Zealand rugby is kind of one of those places that you can only dream about working in. Well, for me, it was a dream to think I'd never be able to kind of go and work in there. But funny how life changes things, and you kind of end up working in there. And I, a couple of months in there, I got shoulder tapped to sit on the Pacifica Strategy Steering Group, and anyway, I said to my manager, why do they want me? And he said, you've done some work in the cultural capability space, and so you've got to go along to this. If you want to go be a part of this Pacifica steering group, and kind of they've got a couple of high outcomes, the things that they want to achieve. One of them is getting Pacifica people involved in all aspects of New Zealand rugby, from administration through to sitting on the board, through to coaching, through to referees. So because our Pacifica people, they're highly represented in the game of rugby. They got the biggest group. They got the biggest amount of people in our game today. And so this Pacifica strategy had been out for a couple of years. It's had some bumps in the road, but kind of working with Ronnie Clark, he's really guided me in the space. And they speak about Talanoa, and so that's one of their values in their space as well too. But I'm really privileged to be in there. Really, it's a real honor and a privilege just to kind of sit in their team. But I had to present to the Whaatasi group, and there were Michael Jones was in there, and a few Blackbirds, and oh man, I was sweating. I was like, oh man, I'm out of my depth. And anyway, but they really, they're so welcoming, so warm, and the New Zealand rugby have got a long way to kind of address some of the things that they want to achieve. Some of the stories that Michael Jones tells and Ronnie tells in terms of playing rugby and what it was like having Bālangi coaches, Graham Henry, and so that bias exists not only in government but right across the spectrum of New Zealand sport, and with our Pacifica people, you've got to be able to acknowledge, their what they bring to the game. Guys like BG Williams and Jerome Kaino. I mean, Jerry Collins. The players of Pacifica peoples that play our game of rugby, it's huge. It's massive, and so it's just an honour and privilege to be in there, Shane.
It sounds good. So,
Derek, connecting. How you're connecting communities through your work. A question that I want to give you is how does your work better connect communities? Like, how does your work better the community?
Good question, Taho. I think with the work that I do, it's that's the thing you want to, and actually that's the hardest thing to do is connect to community. A lot of that we seem to think that training and education is the answer, the be all and end all, when actually I'm swaying to think that I don't know if it's like that anymore. This is a learning experience right here in what we're doing now. So the people that listen to your fellas podcasts, this is educational. And so what I'm saying is we have a whole lot of different ways that we can connect to our community through learning, through training and education. And so by talking about our experiences, our experiences of life, of whānau, our challenges. Those are all the ways that we can connect to our community, because we struggle with that. Even in New Zealand Rugby, we have an interface with the provincial unions, and they have regional development officers and educational officers, and it's their job to go out in the province to facilitate training to clubs, to coaches, to referees. That is massive. That is huge. Some of the numbers that came out today that community rugby has achieved, we're nearly back to pre-COVID in terms of participation numbers in the game today, which is quite surprising. I thought that our numbers, the up the wars and Warriors game, I thought that a lot of our numbers kind of swayed and went across to rugby league, but kind of the numbers that we're looking at today, we're nearly back to pre-COVID. And the number of women and girls playing our game today is massive. It's increased by about 15% from last year. Up in Auckland, they've had a huge growth of women and girls playing the game. Where we do lack is coaching. So one of my kind of projects at New Zealand Rugby is designing coaching pathways, and I've kind of gone around and talked to a couple of coaches, and it's funny, we have these great coaches, world beaters all over. We don't know how you pathway into that. No, there is no, you got to do this level, then the next level, got to go and coach a team, and and then kind of be in the mix. That doesn't happen. And so more than often, rugby players who've kind of played at that level end up in the seat of coaching, and then they take their mates on the shoulder who played with them to come and coach them. Whereas, I think the best coaches are teachers, mums and dads, aunties and uncles. I think they make good coaches because they get the relationship thing. And I think, the big thing missing is culture. Culture seems to be the big thing missing wherever I go. And in terms of what is rugby culture, Tiari, you would know this. You played rugby longer than what I would know, and playing in club rugby culture.
He played at Waikanae, Derek.
Yeah.
Look, the difference between rugby league. See, I went from the rugby league culture. The reason I went to Waikanae is because I was supposed to just retire from contact sport. That was the real thing. And then, ended up playing Waikanae rugby, and the culture, like Derek was saying, it was brought up. How do I put it into correct ways? It was brought up, the Palangi way. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
And then when I turned up, oh shit, this is an islander. And then things changed, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, management, coaching, the whole management of that Waikanae organisation changed to allow more of us brown faces to get involved. And that's why a lot of the boys from Porirua, when they all moved up the coast, I said, bro, come play over here. And it's just, man, back then our management were awesome, and they still are now. There's different management now, and they sort of they cater now. Yeah. And like Derek's saying, they've got to. People have to make that change. They have to know the people to know the players, eh?
Yeah, that's right. And that's how we get into our communities. We have to reflect our communities. That means we have to engage and bring our communities closer to the club, to the game itself. And it's about the thing that exists between the thing. Kind of like the space between the skills and drills. Hey, how do we care for each other? How do we listen to each other? How do we know that that this kid is sick? And to think that actually we need to rest this kid. What is the thing that looks beyond just the game itself? I just want to share an experience that I got talking with the Black Ferns, and And it was funny, we got called into this. Ronnie and I got called into this meeting with the Black Ferns management to say, "Hey, look, they want to have some cultural capability." And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay. What does that look like?" And anyway, that we had the leadership, the girls on the call, and they didn't say anything. They were really quiet, and I was like thinking, man, what's going on here? Anyway, we jumped off the call, and Ruahe Damant texts back one of our mates, and she said, "Yeah, sorry, the girls were a little bit quiet. Sometimes they don't want to say some things in front of management that might impact how they select the players."
True.
So there was a bit of that kind of disjointedness, and I said to her, and I said to her, Ronnie, you put cultural capability aside. I don't think it's about that. I think it's about how do we share the space. I said to him, take along a cover bowl to the girls and see if they'll do a cover session. And so you break the space, and everyone is allowed to talk about what this team means, but also where you're from. Have some and go around and break the ice, because I think you're going to get a lot more out of that than doing a PowerPoint. And anyway, he went along, and he says, he wasn't too sure, and I wasn't sure. I was like thinking, man, this could go either way. And anyway, we got a call back, got some feedback from the girls, and the girl that played on the wing, Caitlin Vaikolo.
You're from Wellington, yeah?
Oh no, I think she's from Auckland. I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
But TV, she said this was exactly the thing that we wanted before we did it on our tour. It was an opportunity for us to level up with our playing, with our management, and Ruby Tui stood up and said that when is the time? When are we allowed the time when we're on tour to go and acknowledge our whānau who have come to support us and have a pie with them? Because when we're in camp, we're not allowed that time. When can we go and do that thing that makes us Nation, that makes us Māori? Because whānau is everything. Hey, if we're talking about culture, whānau is everything. Doesn't matter about the game itself, but family is everything that makes us who we are. And so it's about that acknowledgement, because without them, I wouldn't be in the position.
So what was the answer for Tui at the time when she mentioned
that? I mean, you've got to raise the awareness. And so once management knows, like, oh, okay, I get that. We now know. It was knowing that thing that neither wanted to say or talk about. And I remember a couple of years ago, the Black Ferns went on a tour, and the girls didn't perform on the field. There was a girl that came out, and things didn't go too well between management and players. And so that in that girls' environment, their environment is loud, it's laughter, it's music, it's dancing. That is their culture in terms of how they build their rugby environment. In the men's environment, it is totally opposite to what that is. Yet we are seeing success from that women's environment of that culture than what it is sometimes in the men's culture. I mean, no different to when Wainua used to bring in the ghetto blaster, put him in the scene. And
the opposition is going to it,
It's like that, and I think as Polynesian, as Māori, we have to express our culture, whatever that might look like, whether it's dance, whether it's song and performance. I mean, in the weekend, I watched the Kiwi Ferns, the girls play on the weekend, and some really, really great players, playing that sport as well, too, Māori and Polynesian. And man, when I've watched Stacey Waka perform over for the Broncos over there, man, she is something else. Incredible talent, but she holds her culture front and center. And I think it's a lot of the things, the work that I've done, and even in New Zealand Rugby, it's about building culture. In your coaching space and whatever you do, it's about building culture, understanding awareness, and kind of starting from that place where people nowadays they don't address it, and so it's a them and us. It's a Palangi thing, or it's a Māori thing. So it becomes a bit of a separation. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that does happen because I currently manage our Masters Rugby League. And you have to know everyone's culture there, man.
Yeah.
Even though we're adults, we're old fellas, but it's just understanding. And like you said, I've seen that example that I sort of just drive towards the old fellas. So I look after our local team, Wellington Saints, and our tournament team that we take overseas in the international team. So just understanding everyone's values as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Bring up the cover. Remember?
Oh, you'll bring up the cover. I got boys in the bucket now.
Next thing.
Everyone's their piece then, and So I understand.
Yeah. Now, Derek, any sort of final words before we close off, bro? That you'd like to give out to our people that are listening, and man, we got heaps from you, bro, today.
Yeah, it's been awesome, bro.
Yeah, I just want to kind of acknowledge you three, because to do this, man, I kind of listened to a couple of podcasts, and it is really empowering. It is really empowering to see what you guys have done with this podcast, and I hope you just kind of continue putting out this kind of content, putting out this mātauranga, the knowledge that you share with our communities. It means a lot. It means a lot, and it's far-reaching. I just want to acknowledge you three in terms of what you've done with your podcast. Hopefully, get a T-shirt in the mail over Christmas.
We're working on sponsors for a T-shirt.
Hey, about 15 weeks ago, we didn't even know where the on switch was. So
man.
But yeah, I got one of Jerry. I got one of Tom's T-shirts.
Oh yes,
to raise money for him to go to South Africa. So I bought a hoodie and a T-shirt, and I wear that around proud in the New Zealand Rugby office.
Yeah, bro. I just what I said.
He's got Lydia's one on.
Oh, you got Lydia's one.
Yeah. But I think So
I've got a bicycle on anyway. Our mountain bike group.
But hey, look, I just want to acknowledge yourself, Shane, and thank you so much for inviting me on here. It's such an honor and a privilege, and really, really humbled to be on your fellas' podcast. Tiari, really good to see you, bro. To host. I just want to acknowledge you all for sharing this and allowing me to come on here.
Enjoyed your sharing your journey. I didn't realize you were so clever, Al.
No.
This guy. Right.
Hey, I'm just being real, man. This guy.
You know you're going to be a number two. There's another one coming through. This is just.
Hey, you're going to be a friend of the pod. We've got to get you back on again.
You can invite someone else from New Zealand Rugby. You're pretty close to now.
But you've got to gauge. You've got to gauge that by how many views I get.
True,
right? If my views are low, then bro, what's the point of putting me back on here?
Hey, look,
going off, bro. Don't worry about that.
Let's go. Look, Derek, look, fantastic and real fascinating time with you tonight. Really appreciate it and really thank you in terms of coming on. You're doing some really important mahi in terms of the work that you've done. And you also do it in a person with so much knowledge and expertise, but you also do it for real humbleness in that as well. So really just appreciative from our point with you coming on tonight and really sharing some really sort of important things, and some insight, but then also some sharing some really good sort of gems. I think that is really good to share wider and further. So no, the privilege is on our end, my friend, and really appreciate you sort of coming on just to have a bit of a talanoa.
Awesome.
Cool. So that sort of takes us out. And look, thanks, Derek. And definitely welcome to. We'll look to find a way to get you back in terms of some other stuff that we can talk about. But for everyone else, we'll see you sort of next time. Ka kite.
Ka kite aku.